It's 8 o'clock, people. We are live. This is it. The big one. The big derby is back, and we're here to preview Unloaded Mag NUFC. Come on.
I get those goosebumps every time.
I just have to get the big fella off the bench.
Could this be their last chance now? In it comes, Monster to the front! He scored! Harry Monster scored!
I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too numb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hind to throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me outside? Sipping low key and hiding. I get those goosebumps every time. I'm around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything go fine. Worry about those lines. I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hind.
Here we go. We are back. Welcome to Unloaded Mag NUFC away days match preview, the big Emirates FA Cup match preview, Sunderland versus Newcastle United. We've been looking forward to this one, people, for a long time, and it's here. I've got the main man with me, the old Brandon Blaze in the house, Mr. Chris Hall. How you doing, fella? How you feeling? It's 2 days away, 2 days.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. All good. As you know, I've been off this week, so it's been quite a nice, relaxing week. But yeah, really looking forward to the football this weekend. It'll be interesting to see what Newcastle side turn up, and obviously first derby in 8 years, so it's going to be a big game for both teams, and I'm sure neither will want to lose and make sure that they progress through to the fourth round. So it'll be a feisty affair, I'd imagine.
Definitely. Bound to be. The first crunching tackle is going to get a reaction, I suspect. But look, housekeeping as always. Welcome everyone that's flooding into the show and in the live chat right now. If you haven't already, click those likes and subscribes, and thank you for watching the channel. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Everyone's all excited. Remember, get your questions in for Tom. We are going to be getting in very, very shortly when we talk all things Newcastle United and Sunderland as well. So make sure you do that. And I can see 1 or 2 questions already creeping in right now. But let's not beat around the bush. Let's not mess around. Let's get the main man in. It's a pleasure to welcome in Sky Sports presenter and Sunderland fan, Tom White. Here he is. How you doing, Tom?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you both doing?
Very good. Very good. As I said before we went live, firstly, massive thanks for you taking the time to come and join us. I know you're incredibly busy. We obviously watch you and the great work that you do on Sky Sports. But look, the big question is always going to be the first one. Is that how did you choose the wrong side of the Northeast? How did you decide to become a Sunderland fan? And we always ask the opposition. So what's your story, Tom?
Well, everyone knows that in the Northeast, you don't choose. You are told who you support, all right? And because I'm from Alnwick, so I think most people know that I'm from Northumberland. So really, all of my friends, most of my friends, they're Newcastle. I was surrounded by Newcastle fans, but my whole family are from County Durham and Sunderland supporting areas of County Durham. So when I was born, it was very much a case of my mum and dad saying to me, your name is Tom, you support Sunderland. And that's what it's like, really. As long as both of your parents support the same club, you support that club. I suppose the problem would be if one supports Sunderland, one supports Newcastle, then I suppose you have to choose. And if your parents don't like football, I guess you're one of the lucky ones who can choose whoever's winning. Out of anyone you can choose Manchester City right now if you want. But for me, it was my whole family is Sunderland. There was I never had a choice in the matter.
Wow, no, you're absolutely right. We speak to so many fans, Newcastle fans, that have given a very, very similar story, but from the other side of the perspective, that they've grown up and they've been told that's who you're supporting. That's for sure. But no, it's always good to get the perspective of how you became that Sunderland fan. And look, before we get into the game and we get into stuff from that perspective, I have to ask you, Tom. It's been a strange old day if you're a Sunderland fan in the build up to this game, because social media went wild earlier on this afternoon with lots of various different signs that we thought were fake at this point. And the Roker Report put something out there to begin with, and this was all at the Stadium of Light. They have gone out of their way. And we're very, very happy about that, and we appreciated it. But just going out of their way and putting things up to almost make Newcastle fans feel comfortable and accustomed to their environment, even to the point where they've made mistakes and put Sky Bet League One on there. What they have in fact acknowledged that mistake. And the statements come out just before we come on live, not long before we came on live. But look, as a Sunderland fan, how did that feel to hear that and see that happening? And how does that impact things going into what is a massive game for both clubs going on Saturday?
Well, the ticket things actually happened before, where it said League One, even though we've been in the Championship. This is our second year in the Championship. So for some reason, that's happened before. But with all of the Newcastle signs in what's called Black Cat's Bar, which ironically enough, it's been very, very strange. And at first I wasn't convinced it was true. It turns out it is true. I don't know the history behind it. I don't know the decision making behind it. Baffled by it as much as anybody's. I think the Newcastle fans are as baffled, although for the Newcastle fans it's a lot funnier than it is for the Sunderland fans. The one thing that I can say about it, the one thing I will say about it is, although the apology from the club is not enough for some, and I understand that, at least they have acknowledged it and apologised, because I've been a Sunderland fan when the regime in charge would not have even acknowledged it, certainly not apologised for it, would have been silence. And Newcastle have had that as well. When there's been mistakes and there's been silence. So at least that's something. But how it's happened, I don't know. And there's been serious anger around the club all day. And a lot of people have been asking me, well, come on, can you find out what's going wrong? Remember that I'm not a Northeast reporter. I'm not a local reporter. So it's a bit different. It's not really, I'm not trying to shift the blame and say it's not my fault. It's not my job. It's not really up to me to ring Sunderland, ring Newcastle and say, can you please tell me what's going on? I've been looking at it, the rest of the Sunderland fans. It's been just very, very strange. At least the club have acknowledged it, although that might not be enough for some, which I do understand.
Yeah, look, Chris, I'll come to you on that. It's a strange old, I don't want to use the word stunt, because I don't think it is a stunt. I think it's just a strange thing to do, isn't it? Just before a big game, and from your perspective, from our perspective, Chris, as a Newcastle fan, how does that make you feel, knowing that your opposition, your rivals, are going through all of that today, so close to the derby? Does it fill you with confidence? Does it fill you with confidence that they're not going to be kind of right as a fan base going into this game? Because their arguments are almost directed elsewhere.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I've never known a home stadium or the home fan base to try and be as accommodating as what Sunderland are, especially in a derby. So it does feel a bit strange from the owners. Whether there's method in the madness, I don't know. Obviously, the League One thing is unfortunate. It's interesting when Tom said that that's happened a number of times as well. That is really, really unusual. So obviously, that's a faux pas from the club. Whether they're just trying to, put a bit of distraction in or something, I don't know, or whether it's just really, 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 really badly timed, I'm not sure. But yeah, in terms of changing the structure, as in within the stadium, I know obviously the idea is to put the away fans in a certain section of the stadium, obviously for policing reasons and to make sure that fans are as safe as possible, which is to be admired. But to make the away fans so welcoming and to kind of almost make them feel like they're at home just feels a bit odd to me. Like I say, I've not heard of any other club doing it, unless you boys can tell me otherwise. But I've never heard.
I've never seen it before. That's why I think it's very, very strange. The thing is, although there's been an apology, there hasn't been an explanation, which ultimately there will be. And when I'm at the game on Saturday, I'm sure I will find out, even if it's off the record. But until that explanation comes out, it's quite difficult to to say, oh, okay, fair enough, because we don't know the reasons. It's been very odd. I tell you what, it's been a very strange day. My phone battery ran out fairly quickly with the amount of messages I got when all that was going on. And like I said, like you at first, I thought it was fake, but it's not, sadly. It's been taken down, by the way. It's been taken down since. But
definitely. The statement came out just recently, but then like on social media it moves very, very quickly. News does, and it came out that they had removed it, and ultimately that is the right thing, definitely from a Sunderland perspective. Now, we have a friend of the channel who's also a friend of yours, who is part of our side, the Black and Whites, Pete Grave. It's been very interesting watching your socials over the last few days, because you guys have almost come up with a bit of an agreement, haven't you, with regards to how this fixture goes? Just tell the listeners and the fans, if they haven't already seen it, what you guys have been up to and what you've agreed, mate.
I can assure you there's been no agreement, right?
Oh,
Pete Graves decided out of nowhere to say, if Sunderland win, he'll wear red and white on air. And if Newcastle win, I will wear black and white on air. I did not agree to that. Never, ever did, right? So he started this, right? And I've said, all right, well, I'll do some sort of a forfeit. Everyone knows I think Newcastle will win. I've said publicly, I think Newcastle will actually win the FA Cup. I said I'll not be wearing a Newcastle shirt. I will do some sort of a forfeit, which I guess me and Pete will have to chat about on probably Sunday. I don't think he's nasty enough to call me on Saturday afternoon after the game, but on Sunday there'll be some sort of forfeit. I won't wear the black and white, but his deal was that he would wear red and white, basically a Sunderland shirt, if Sunderland win. And he said, oh, I'll give you the draw. I was like, well, a draw is a replay. He didn't even realise it was a replay. Anyway, after all this, he started this, and guess what? He's not even going to the game. He's away skiing in France or somewhere. He's not even here. He's not even in the country. He can't even follow it through.
I am aware he's not in the country, because he was going to make an appearance tonight to come and chat to us. But he's gone the next best thing, and he sent us a little message from the slot.
Yo, everybody, it's Loaded Mac. Why did I say yo? A Tom White special guest, my good friend Tom. How you feeling, Tom? How's the pre-match nerves? Listen, Tom is a great guy. One of my best friends in the world, and he's a Sunderland fan, which probably tells you how much of a great bloke he is. I know he'll be a fantastic guest on what is a brilliant show. So ask him. There's so many questions I could give you to ask him, but mainly how he's feeling right now ahead of the biggest game of the season for us now, and also for Sunderland. Look, I think it's going to be really tight. It's going to be nervy. Sunderland must be fancying the chances because the run that we're on at the moment, but I just think Newcastle are going to have enough to get over the line. They have to. But Tom, love you to bits, mate. Glad you've braved up and gone on the show. I know the boys there and the team will look after you. So fair play for going on. And hope you don't enjoy the derby too much of the weekend, mate. And I'll catch up with you next week. And don't forget that if Newcastle win, you're going to wear my classic Newcastle United shirt from back in the day, from back in the early noughties, I think it was. And if Sunderland win, as I've said, I will wear your Sunderland shirt. So, if anything, that's ramped it up even more. All the best, guys. See you all soon.
Up the tune. Come on.
Up the tune.
For most of that video, I thought young Daisy was actually sticking her finger up at me. Good fun. I haven't agreed to that, but yes, it's great to hear from him. When he said there, how's the nerves and stuff like that, and he says he thinks it'll be nervy for both sides. I actually don't think it will. I know you want predictions and stuff, but I don't think it'll be nervy. I don't think it'll be too nervy for Newcastle at all. Really, I've got to say. I think you're going to be absolutely fine. I think it's going to be a quite enjoyable day for you.
It's an interesting one because I don't know about you, Chris, and I'll come to you on this because I haven't actually thought about whether the players will be nervous or not. I've just had it in mind that they're just going to go out there and do the business. But do you think there might be nerves? Like Tom doesn't think there will be, but the form that we're on, not playing great at the moment. Could there be going into what is arguably for a lot of fans, a lot of Newcastle fans, and our fan base, the biggest game of the season?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of the fan base, yeah, it is. It's definitely down as the biggest game of the season so far. Without a doubt, could end up being the biggest game of the season. Full stop. We know that it's been a long time since Newcastle played Sunderland, and I think from the players' perspective, Pete, I think the players are under pressure because they know that they've got to deliver. Like as far as Newcastle fans are concerned, this is a must-win game. So for us, for this horrible run we've been on, we've lost 7 of the last 8. If we continue in that vein of form and then we go and get knocked out by our nearest rivals, who are in the league below us, it just doesn't look good on us. And I tell you what, as well, I don't think it'll just be the players who'll be feeling the nerves. I think it'll be Eddie Howe. Because it's, I suppose, for Sunderland, and Tom, tell me if you feel like this, but for Sunderland, it feels to me a bit almost like a free shot in terms of, everyone expects Newcastle to win. So, like, the pressure maybe not ramped up as much. And obviously, with you being at the Stadium of Light, that's got to be a big help as well.
Well, the main thing, the kind of main feeling I've got about this game is, in all the times that we've played here recently, yes, I know there were 6 in a row, but there's been draws on either side of that. Every single one of those games, the 6 in a row plus the last one, the 1-1 Allardyce v Benitez, when it was Defoe and Mitrovic who scored, and it was 1-1 in like March or something, 2016. Every single one of those games, Sunderland have been in a relegation battle in the Premier League. Not Newcastle haven't been in a relegation battle in all of them, but they've been in a relegation battle in some of them. So the pressure wasn't just got to win the derby. It was like, we've got to win to stay up. Because ultimately, if Newcastle had won that, the last one, the draw, the 1-1, ultimately, if Newcastle had won that, we would have gone down. Newcastle would have stayed up. That's how big these games have been in the past. It's not a free hit because it's a derby. A derby's never a free hit. But you're right in the fact that there's not as many nerves this time because there's only this match to concentrate on. If we lose, we're out of a cup that we're not going to win anyway. But we're going out to our arch rivals, which is always hard to take. But at least it's not like, oh my God, and now we're going to get relegated. That's why there's less pressure than usual, which is why I'm able to kind of look forward to this game, be a bit more excited about this game. I'm not feeling sick about this game as much as I normally am. But it's still it's a horrible feeling I've been on loads of Newcastle podcasts, etc., and YouTube channels, and I've always made it very clear that I'm a Sunderland fan. I don't hate Newcastle. Like I say, most of my friends are Newcastle fans. I don't hate. Being a Sunderland fan doesn't mean you have to hate Newcastle. Being a Newcastle fan doesn't mean you have to hate Sunderland. Being an Arsenal fan means you don't have to hate Tottenham, etc. But the derby, if you win it, you are on cloud 9. It makes your year if you win a derby, right? And given that we haven't had one for nearly 8 years, will be even more so. But at least it really is this time. It's one game. When it's in the Premier League relegation battle, it's much more than that. This one is one game, and I'll say something now, which I'm quite interested to hear what you think of this. If we lose by 1 goal to you, I mean, you've been you've thrashed Paris Saint-Germain this season. You've been in the Champions League, done really well in the very, very unlucky not to go through in the Champions League. We're in the Championship, and if you win by like 1 goal, maybe even 2 goals, I'll walk away thinking that's all right. I feel that if you win by 5 or 6, that will still really crush me. I can accept you winning for the reasons I've just said, but if it's an absolute hammering, that will be very, very hard to take, regardless. If we were in the National League and you were in the Champions League, a thrashing would be really hard to take. And I was at the 5-1, by the way. I was at the 5-1 in the Newcastle end. And a couple of people around me who, it was quite obvious by the end I was a Sunderland fan, 4th and 5th goal, they didn't celebrate because they were like, they actually felt sorry for me. Yeah. So I just do not want a thrashing like that, all right? I'm not saying I'd accept any sort of defeat, but if it's by 1 goal, I could probably take it. I just don't want to get thrashed.
What are your thoughts on that, Chris? Would we feel the same the other way around? I think that's the big question, really.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I suppose this is the difficulty from our perspective, because we can't accept anything but a win, can we? Even if it's a draw, you know, there'll still be that element of, yeah, we go back to St. James's Park, but it's another fixture that we probably don't need, and really we should be winning. So we haven't really got that. And let's be honest, Tom, if you beat us 1-0, 2-0, it's still gonna be bad. And this is why
do you feel like you have to thrash us because of where we are and where you are, and this very different situation? But I remember going to the Stadium of Light when we were in League One and we played your under 23s at the time. I think it's now under 21s. I remember thinking, I mean, this would be very embarrassing if we don't win. The only way that it can even be even put a smile on our face really is if we thrash them and end up being 4-0. It's like, okay, fair enough, because that could have been really embarrassing. Now, I know it's not. I know the level isn't, the difference isn't as much as League One to under 23s, but Champions League this season to Championship this season, do you feel like you have to thrash us rather than just beat us?
I think it would depend on the lineup. I don't know about you, Pete, but say for example, if we're playing Matt Ritchie, if we're playing Paul Dummett, if we're playing Karius, if we're playing, you know, not a second string, but certainly players who you wouldn't necessarily class as full first team players, I think that we would accept, you know, a narrow win if Eddie Howe goes out and, you know, takes this game incredibly seriously and goes, you know, with your Isaacs, with your Gordons, with your Botmans, with your Brunos. And if he does do that, Tom, I think there will be an expectancy that it's at least a 2-goal margin, if not a 3-goal margin. And I think if we scrape it over the line or we don't perform very well, but we get the result, there'll still be some people who aren't very happy about that.
But sadly for you, that there's no Europe, and incredibly, and I felt for you actually here in the Chelsea game, there's no 2-legged semi-final of the League Cup and potentially final. There isn't as much of a huge backlog of games coming up, and you've got the mini winter break that the Premier League have. There's no way Eddie Howe isn't picking his main team. Surely that'll be a huge surprise if he doesn't.
He will. He'll pick his team.
He has to. He has to, Tom.
And it's another question we can kind of look at for a short period as well after that, is that, you know, Eddie Howe has to win matches, and we've got an incredibly difficult January right now. We've already gone through it at Anfield. We know we've got Man City to come next weekend. We also know that we have Aston Villa at the end of the month. That's an incredibly difficult fixture list, and so they're not guaranteed wins, any of those 2 games. So therefore, we have to ensure that we're in the best possible position to, 1, go through to the next round, and 2, to be in a winning or have a winning feeling going into that Man City game, which will be an incredibly difficult game. So for me, I think he has to play his first team, his best available 11, and I believe he will, which is why I think, for example, Kieran Trippier didn't play at Anfield. I think he may well, and it's not been confirmed, he's apparently got a groin injury, but I think Kieran Trippier probably could have played against Liverpool, but maybe just giving him that extra rest has made him available and giving his head time to kind of like freshen out after having a difficult moment, to be able to play in this game and really kind of be the captain and the leader that we know and expect him to be. On top of that, you asked the question about, or you mentioned about the result and what it would mean to Sunderland fans depending on the score. For me, we just need to win. I don't care whether it's by 1 goal. I don't care whether it's 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, whatever it is. We're going to the Stadium of Light. Any win is a great win at the Stadium of Light. And the fact that you guys, before the 1-1 that you talked about previously, had sort of 6 in a row, that rot needs to be stopped. Although there's 7-8 years difference in between that, we want to experience a win against Sunderland, let alone being at the Stadium of Light. It has to happen. And so with that comes a little bit of additional pressure, of course, because there's a pressure on us, an expectation on us. But for me, and the one thing that we hadn't mentioned, and I think was really important, is, in fact, we did. I think you mentioned it, Tom, is the fact that, we've played PSG away from home and done really well. We've beat them at our place. We've gone to AC Milan and dug out a 0-0 draw. We've been to difficult places and played well, albeit from a last-minute equaliser against Chelsea, it would have gone into the semi-final. So we've had difficult games and games where we're very, very nervy, and we've been able to come through it. So I still feel that these guys are professional enough to go and do the job against Sunderland, but it's that derby feel that they haven't experienced yet. I think there's only Lascelles and Dummett in the squad that were part of that squad under Rafa Benitez last time. That's important. They're going to need to build on that. The Geordie boys in the squad are going to be key to that because they know what it means to be involved in a derby with you. They're a fan or part of the club at that point, not playing. I just think all of those things mean that we have to win this game by any means necessary. And that's just where I kind of stand on that.
Yeah. Yep. I think it. Yeah. I think you're right. And I think Eddie Howe knows that actually this tournament is a real chance to win a trophy as well. I know it's only the 3rd round, but given that Arsenal and Liverpool are playing, one of them is going to knock each other out as well. Yeah. I think it's a real chance, and I think that I think he'll be going for it with his strongest possible team. And I also think that I was listening to a Sunderland podcast today, actually, and Steve Harmison was a guest on it. So he was kind of doing what I'm doing, given the Newcastle side. And he was suggesting he thought that Dan Burn might be rested. And I was saying that any Northeast lads in that Newcastle squad will be demanding to play. And I think that Dan Burn, I mean, Sean Longstaff would start anyway, but Longstaff, Burn, Miley. I'd imagine that, I know Dummett is Welsh, but he's from the Northeast, isn't he? Yeah. Like, Dummett will be begging to play, but Eddie Howe's going to say, sorry, no, maybe on the bench.
No, I agree. Yeah. That's going to be interesting when we look at the lineups. That's for sure. In terms of the how we see our teams being put out there. But look, let's get into. There's a good few questions actually. There's a few questions in the chat that we'll come to in just a short while. But I want to get into the game because and talk about the game a little bit more. Look at the lineups very briefly, and then we can move back to some of these questions and then look to predictions after that. But for everybody that's watching the show right now, if you haven't clicked the like, click that like, all that housekeeping, good stuff. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. But we're going to look at the game. And before we do that, we always have to have just a few stats.
Good evening, lads.
Evening, as always. Double O Stato, the main man. Keith Roll, how are you doing? Happy New Year. We said it in Liverpool. We say it again. Happy New Year to you. Hope you're well. And most importantly, what stats have you got for us for this big derby game?
Yeah, Happy New Year to Pete. Chris and Tom as well. Welcome. I hope you're all well and hope you had a great Christmas and New Year. Yeah, I've condensed the stats this week. So not as many stats, but I've condensed them, and I've gone a little bit cup playoff themed as well, because we're aware of the league situation as well, which I'd normally give as well, which is pretty much even. So I thought I would look at it from a cup point of view. So Newcastle's record against Sunderland in cup and playoff matches: played 14 games, won 2, drawn 5, and lost 7. It's the first time the two sides have played in the FA Cup since Sunderland beat Newcastle 2-0 back at St James's Park in 1956, when Newcastle were defending FA Cup winners. Newcastle haven't beaten Sunderland in any competition since 1909, when they beat Sunderland 3-0 at Roker Park in the FA Cup quarterfinals. So any win against Sunderland is long overdue. Any win in the cup you have to go back to 1909, which is crazy. I thought I'd get some stats here on the opposition players as well. Jack Clarke is Sunderland's top goal scorer this season with 12 goals in 23 games. Clarke's also got a 100% record from penalties, scoring all 5 penalties. Job Bellingham and Dan Neil, they've both got 4 goals each, whilst Alex Pritchard, he's the highest number of goal scoring assists this season with 5 assists. And some general stats to round off. The last 17 seasons have seen Newcastle United knocked out 8 times in the 3rd round, 7 times in the 4th round, and plus after winning 3 matches going into the 6th round as well, the quarterfinals as well. Sunderland as well, similar record for Sunderland as well in the last 20 years since they last reached the semi-finals back in 2004. They've been eliminated from the last 4 FA Cup ties against Premier League opponents 1-0 since going back to Southampton in February 2014. And when playing in the lower division, Sunderland haven't beaten a Premier League side in the FA Cup since January 2005, when they beat Crystal Palace 2-1. Sunderland, I thought I'd look at the second halves of both Newcastle and Sunderland in games. And Sunderland have scored crucial goals in the second half of games on 11 out of 26 league games this season. So they're stronger in the second half, whereas Newcastle have conceded 26 goals in the second half of games they've played in 13 of the games they've played this season. And in 8 of those games, 12 games, Newcastle have been in a position to either win or draw that game. So they've dropped a lot of points this season in the second half. And think of also how they've got on in the Champions League and that League Cup game against Chelsea. Newcastle's current 9 winless games in a row against Sunderland, the 3 draws and the 6 defeats from March 2012 to March 2016. That's the joint worst record in a Tyne-Wear derby, or Wear Tyne derby, with Sunderland's own winless record of 9 winless games in a row against Newcastle of 3 draws and 6 defeats, which went from April 2001 and going up to April 2008. So that's there's a lot riding on this game. We don't need to. That doesn't need to be emphasised. So it's either going to be that 9 winless record's going to stay intact for both sides, or it could be extended by Sunderland to a 10th winless game for Newcastle. So the fingers crossed, it's emphatically ended by Newcastle, and let's see what happens at the weekend.
Great stats as always, Keith, and those perfect stats to know in the build-up to the game. That is for sure, and just put a bit of positive light on Sunderland. Hopefully, we could change those stats very, very on Saturday. But look, at this point now, we'll have a look at the tactics board. So I'll drop the tactics board on there now. Hopefully, you guys can see that.
So
you currently. But look, as I said to you, Tom, before we went live, your squad is across the bottom. Just talk us through who you think is going to start the game and the formation in which you're going to put these players in.
Yeah, well, it's rather than what I would do, this is what I think it will be. It'll be a 4-2-3-1. Anthony Patterson will be in goal. That's a definite. Right back. I mean, Trey Hume, number 32 there. He will definitely play. Whether it's right back or left back, I don't know, but put him right back for now. It will definitely be Dan Ballard and Luke O'Nien as the centre backs. Luke O'Nien is captain.
Was that right and left? Is that correct?
Well, funny enough, Ballard and O'Nien switch in games, which is quite rare.
Oh,
yeah, it's quite rare. O'Nien's actually right-footed, but very good with his left. But they switch within games, so it doesn't matter which way you put those round. So those four will definitely start. Hugh might be left back with Jensen Sealt at right back. However, I'll put number 42 there, Adji Elise, put him to left back. Like I say, it might be Sealt at right back and Hume at left back, but that worked the other day. We kept a clean sheet. So keep it like that. The midfield two, the kind of deeper midfielders, will definitely be number 39, Pierre Ekwa. And on the left, he's left-footed, so switch him along. And Dan Neal, number 24, alongside him. You can skip 10 and right wing and striker for now, and just go to left wing is definitely Jack Clark.
Yes. Just talk to us a little bit about Jack Clark, because he's putting up a lot of trees at the moment in the Championship. A lot of interest in him. The last I heard that Sheffield United, Chris Wilder was potentially looking at him in the January transfer window. How good is he for you, and what's his kind of ceiling? What's his potential?
But he's a Premier League player. He needs to go to a Premier League club who are going to play him, and a Premier League club that aren't going to get relegated. And Sheffield United, unfortunately for them, it looks like they are. Hope they don't, but it looks like they are. In the summer, he was available for £16 million. No one would bid more than 10. Now, they've seen what he's done. He's our top scorer. His goals and assists, it's something like one a game. That might even be better than that. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. He's been amazing. Without him, we'd be, I wouldn't say struggling, but he's a brilliant player. He's Premier League standard. He wasn't good enough for Tottenham, and he's still not good enough for Tottenham, but he's Premier League standard. And I tell you now, if you do start with Trippier at right back, and I think you will, if Clark has a good game against Trippier, who was a quality right back, if Clark has a good game, then Premier League clubs will probably be on the phone Saturday night asking for him.
Wow.
So I think Clark would probably be the only player connected to Sunderland, the only person connected to Sunderland who wants to see Kieran Trippier on the Newcastle team sheet. He is a brilliant. You'll see. The thing is, he plays every minute of every game. He never gets a rest, and that's a bit of a concern. Remember, in the EFL, we have more games. You've been in Europe, so obviously you can sympathise with that because you've got more games because you're in Europe. But Clark, just he's our key player basically. Joe Bellingham will definitely start, but I tell you what, I might be wrong here, but I put him up front, put him as striker.
Oh.
Yeah. Put Alex Pritchard at 10.
Okay. Where was Pritchard? I had it.
Pritchard is number 21 there. And now this is the thing. Number 10, Patrick Roberts. Put him to right wing. And this is no inside info or anything. I know that he's a doubt. I think that will be the team. If I don't know about whether it'll be Elise or Sealt and Hume swap sides. But if Roberts is fit, I believe that will be the front line. Now, if Roberts isn't fit, it might be what we did the other day, which was Rusin as the striker, Bellingham at 10 and Pritchard on the right. Yeah. But if Pritchard plays on the right, he's never there. He basically is like a very lopsided formation. But if Roberts is fit, that's what the front line would be, I believe.
Yeah, I know that Roberts didn't play in the last game, and there were a few doubts, kind of, as to whether he could play. But I think you might be right. I think they've probably rested him to ensure he's available for this game.
He was definitely injured in the last game, because the game before, the Rotherham game, he went off injured in the first half. So he is actually like genuinely injured, but they've said he's a major doubt for this game. But if he's fit, he'll play. So in that team, in terms of the actual players, Elise and Roberts, they're the two who might not play. The other 9 will 100% be starting, and then you'd have to just kind of rejig who is where. But nine of those 11 will 100% start.
Brilliant.
Tom,
go for it.
Just to ask Tom, what are the chances of us seeing Chris Rigg on Saturday?
I think he'll be on the bench. Rigg stayed at Sunderland in the summer on the basis that at Sunderland we actually do give young players a chance. Yeah. And he was always on the bench. He was coming on in a lot of games. Sometimes when we were chasing a game, he was still coming on. It wasn't a case of, we've got a 2-goal cushion, let's bring him on. He was, Mowbray was putting him on quite a lot. But then he had the under-18 World Cup, was it? Under-18 World Cup or something, whatever it was. He was away with England at a tournament. And since then, he's only been on the bench. I don't think he's got on the pitch since, because he missed a big chunk.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen of him, he's kind of like, you know how because of injuries, Lewis Miley got his chance with you.
Yeah.
If we have those sort of injuries, if Chris Rigg gets his chance, he might take it in the same way as Lewis Miley has. I don't know if he's as good as him. How can I possibly compare them? But he came on again. I was at the Southampton game when we won 5-0, and he came on with a few minutes to go, and he's not a tall player. Scored a header in the last minute to make it 5-0. But he's so tidy on the ball for someone who's just turned 17, left-footed as well, central midfielder. I don't think the managers trust him in midfield, so they'll put him out on the wing. I think he'll be on the bench. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes on, but if he won't be coming on if it's 0-0 or you're 1-0 up. He'll come in if you're winning by 2 goals, 3 goals. We might see him, but I would be surprised if he wasn't on the bench.
Yeah.
Chris, and Keith, we do know about our 17-year-old midfielders that have come through the academy, that's for sure, and Tom's just alluded to that one as well. But just before, just a quick word on this man, Jobe Bellingham. Lots of people circling for him. Craig Hope today, in fact, put this article out that Newcastle had spoke to Jobe Bellingham before he actually signed for Sunderland, and are still keeping tabs on it with a number of other Premier League clubs. I think it was Tottenham, Arsenal linked with him. Is he that good to make that step? Maybe not at this moment, Jude Bellingham-esque, or is he? I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him, but I hear a lot of positive things about his ability.
When you see him on Saturday, you will, without looking at the name on the back of it, actually the name on the back of his shirt isn't Bellingham, he actually goes Jobe on the back of his shirt. My point is, if you didn't know who he was, you'd say, God, that guy plays like Jude Bellingham, right? Because they are so similar. It's just that Jobe isn't as good, and he probably never will be as good, which is no slight on him really, if you're not as good as Jude Bellingham. But they are so similar. They run the same. His first touch is beautiful. He plays nice, simple passes. And this is the thing. He's played up front. I think he's most effective for us as a striker. He normally plays number 10. He sees himself as a box-to-box midfielder. But I don't think he's as effective there at this stage. Maybe when he's older, maybe when he fills out a bit, because he's just turned 18. Maybe when he's a bit older, that might be his position. But right now, number 10, he plays well. I think he's more effective as a striker. And but he honestly, when you watch him, you might not say, "Oh wow, he's an amazing player." Yet you might, in that game, you might not think that. But when you see him, you'll think, "Crikey, he is like his brother," and he's desperate to not be seen like that. That's why he goes by Jobe rather than Bellingham on his shirt. But he's so similar, and you can't get away from it. Both footed as well.
Sounds like a player.
Interesting.
Sure.
Yeah, he does.
We're definitely keeping an eye on him. That is for sure. One to watch, Joe Bellingham, and we do our fully loaded transfer shows. One to discuss again. Is that one that we potentially? I don't think that would ever happen. Certainly would never allow him to come to Newcastle. But one to keep an eye on, that's for sure. But Chris, we're going to come to you. We're going to whip through the lineups, get Keith's opinion and critique anything that you put out there, and then we'll go to some questions and predictions, mate.
Yeah, it's a difficult one for me, this, because I'm not wholly convinced. I'll do what Tom's done, and I'll pick the lineup that I think will be on the pitch. Not necessarily the lineup I would pick, but I'll pick what I think it'll be. So in between the sticks will be Martin Dubravka.
Okay.
Left back we'll go with Dan Burn.
Okay.
Right back we'll go with Kieran Trippier. And centre backs, Sven Botman on the left and Fabian Schär on the right.
Yeah.
The tried and tested.
Yeah.
Fabian Schär, for the last few seasons, I've said that Fabian Schär is the most underrated player in the Premier League. I've said that for a few seasons now.
Brilliant.
This season, finally, I can't say that because people are actually starting to finally rate him. But he's been a very underrated player. I think that Rafael Benitez's transfer dealings were horrific, but he got it right with Schär and Dubravka. Brilliant.
Yeah.
If only he wasn't 32, if he was 5-6 years younger, I think we would be talking about him as being one of the best around. But equally, I think we'd have the Real Madrids and the Barcelonas and the PSGs coming to us with big money for him, because he would be definitely worth it. There's nobody for me that can do what he does at centre back on the ball. He plays like a midfielder, but actually he's got that defensive element to him. And Daz, I think Daz is either in the chat or he's watching now. He always puts that that emoji where he's got the headband where he's injured, because he always picks up an injury, because he always puts himself in positions where he puts himself in harm's way. But that's what a defender should do. So he's got that ability about him, but his elegance on the ball is so good. But
he's got one hell of a shot on him as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see him score from 30 yards on Saturday.
You'll want to score, won't he? You'll want to score.
Yeah, of course. You're exciting us already, Tom. Don't do that. Chris, go on, finish off the team at midfield and forward line.
So I think Bruno will be in the holding position.
Okay.
The only complication for this game, but I'm going to go with physicality, I think, rather than sentimentality. I think on the left it will be Joe Linton.
Yeah.
And I think on the right it will be Sean Longstaff.
Okay. Yep.
I do expect Louis Miley to make an appearance, though. I do think he'll get on. I just think he might start with the experience. I would suggest. On the left, I think it'll be Anthony Gordon. On the right, hang on. No, do you know what? I'm going to go Miggy Almiron.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he will go with Miggy. Miggy had a rest in the last game as well, didn't he? So I suppose it would make sense to play Miggy in this one. Same with Trippier, and then through the middle, obviously. Not that we've got much options, but we'll go with Alexander Isak, I think, which isn't a bad option to have, to be fair. So
I'll be honest with you, Chris. Even if we had the option, I'd be still going Alexander Isak. Just interestingly, I've had a few. I want to get your thoughts on this, Tom. I've had a few conversations with opposition fans: Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, West Ham, all the rest of them. They asked me the question yesterday, but they also had the opinion that Alexander Isak is the second best striker to Erling Haaland in the Premier League. That was them saying that to me. That was their opinion, having watched it. Would you agree with that?
Well, I very much like Alexander Isak, but I actually think that Callum Wilson's better. So if Haaland's number one, I can't have Isak as two if I think that Callum Wilson is better. I think you've got two brilliant strikers there. Then it also, behind Haaland, I think, again, at Manchester City, I think Alvarez is a very good striker as well. And I'm just trying to think of other ones. There's people. I mean, I love Ivan Toney, love him, but he's not he's been banned for the last few months. So it's hard to say him. And obviously Kane has now gone. I can't say he's second because, like I say, I think Wilson is better, but he's very, very good. He's right up there. I think him and Wilson are both excellent strikers. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. Keith, this is your opportunity to critique anything that Chris has put in for the team and the lineups. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'll pretty much say that would be the lineup. It's interesting, the last game or so that game we saw players getting a rest who potentially would be brought in. I know there's a question mark over Trippier. Fingers crossed there isn't a fitness issue and that was just a rest. Maybe if that's the case, then maybe if there is a concern, maybe Livramento would be in there. I know he hasn't played well recently. He's sort of had a little bit of a few issues, but this is the sort of game where you want the captaincy and natural leadership of Trippier in the game, really, and maybe it brings out the best of him. I'm not convinced by Almiron in his form at the moment, but who else do we go with, really? We haven't really got those options, have we? Maybe his pace, again, and energy will create problems for Sunderland. Maybe he doesn't score, but maybe that pace and energy creates the issues for Sunderland. And I think you have to go with Miley's played brilliantly, but you have to go with Joe Linton in this game, really. The physicality. I'm not going to lie, I've got concerns as well about Bruno and Joe Linton, maybe in terms of the challenges in the game, the referee being maybe a bit heightened. Maybe there could be a few bookings picked up there, but I would go with Joe Linton and Bruno for the physicality in the middle of the park in terms of trying to win that physical battle, and maybe Louis Miley comes on in the second half for the energy and the pace.
Yeah. It's not a bad option to bring off the bench, is it, Lewis Miley, who we know can do the business in high pressure games. But look, just really quickly for me, I think this area here, I'm not sure about Hume, how good he is. I've not really seen too much of him, but I think Anthony Gordon is going to be key in this game, particularly on the counter-attack in those areas. But equally for Sunderland, I think if Roberts plays, Roberts is technically superb. Brilliant at set pieces, but really, really good at delivering balls, and doesn't always have to beat his man to get a really good ball into the box. He's a product of Man City, so that sort of tells its own story. And then, look, Tom, you've talked about it here. This pairing in this area here, I think, is going to be really interesting both ways. Jack Clarke going up against Trippier, he'll have the pace to beat Trippier in these situations, and Trippier's going to have to use his experience. But it's about, can Jack Clarke do the other thing the other way? Because I've got a feeling that we will have quite a bit of possession, and Trippier and Almiron, when together, and we've talked about this, Chris, on reviews shows and various other shows previously, that they have a good partnership. As bad as Almiron's playing, Almiron plays better when he's got Trippier in the team, and that could be a little bit of a difference. But ultimately, as we always talk about, and Chris and Keith, you will know it, is this big area here is where the game, mostly for Newcastle United, is won and lost. And it's about what those three can do in the team. Can Guimaraes hold that position? Can he hold himself? Can he play in that area and not get sucked up to press the man and give Pritchard the opportunity to counter, which is what's been happening in previous games? Are Joe Linton and Longstaff able to win the battle in that midfield mix and get forward? Is Joe Linton able to exploit in these areas here? From a Newcastle perspective, they're the things that I'm looking at and I would expect to see. But it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be on a knife edge for parts of that game. But Keith, you made a really, really good point. Joe Linton and Guimaraes have been picking bookings up for needless challenges, or for challenges that have been deemed soft but have put them under pressure because they've picked up early bookings. Is that going to be the case on Saturday? Equally, you could say the same for Sunderland, because it's going to be a high-tempoed game. It's going to be a high-emotional game. Is the referee going to make a decision early on that could dictate the rest of the game. An early booking could potentially do that, and we have to be mindful of that. But I'm intrigued to see how Bellingham gets on against Shaw and Botman. I'm confident that those boys will keep things quiet, but I'm intrigued to watch him a little bit more. But equally, I'm intrigued to see how this man gets on against these two in here. Ballard, Luke, is it O'Nien? O'Nien, sorry. I'm intrigued to see how Isak has got 11 goals this season, which is a good return so far at the halfway mark. Can he continue that goal scoring form? Anything from you, Tom, to add about where you think can win the game before we move on?
No, I think I could see him resting Almiron, putting Gordon to the right, Joe Linton to the left, and Miley in midfield. I could see how doing that, just because I've taken the mick out of Eddie Howe a little bit for whinging about being tired and stuff, when actually he's got players like Lewis Hall and Matt Ritchie who just sit there doing nothing, and you think, well, come on, you have actually got players you could actually bring on. But in fairness, Almiron has looked tired. Trippier's had a little rest. Him and Almiron are the two that I think have looked tired. He might take Almiron out of this one, and that would mean he can actually play Miley, even if Joe Linton's out of position. That's something that's just a complete guess at what might happen, as opposed to something that I've heard, obviously.
Yeah.
Interesting.
To be fair, Tom, it's a fair comment, because we've discussed it for a while now, on the channel, that quite often we see really good performances from Joe Linton on that left wing position. The reason that we've for this particular game put him in the middle is probably just purely down to his physicality, because he's just like a man mountain in the middle of that park. He's really, really key for us. And when he's not in the team, or when he's not in the middle of the park, we do notice, we do miss him. But no, we have played like that quite a lot, where we've put Joe Linton on the left, Gordon on the right, and then that's obviously why Miley's been playing as well. So no, it's a good point.
I personally think Joe Linton's a bigger threat in the game when he plays on the left, but he does such a good job putting out fires in midfield that you just have to play it. And that's the big thing. Like, if you go back to games last season, Joe Linton actually probably performed better when he was on the left. When Alan St. Maxim wasn't available, he actually played better on that left-hand side. But because Gordon's had such a good season, not great form recently, but such a good season overall, is that you can't really play him there now when you probably want to. And so he's now having to put those fires out in the midfield, which he can still do a great job with. But again, it'll be interesting to see what type of lineup comes up. Whether Chris, you're on the button, and I would probably go for that formation, the same as would Keith. But interesting to see if they go with what Tom suggested as well. That lineup. But look, are there a few questions that we can ask for Tom before we get to predictions? Those all important predictions to see out the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tom Dixon asks you, Tom, were you devastated when Ross Stewart left the club for Southampton?
Ross Stewart was brilliant, but we knew he was going. We knew he wasn't going to sign a new contract. So he got to the last year of his contract, and we got 10 million for him on deadline day. So devastated, yes, I suppose I was, but I completely understood. And to get 10 million for someone when we were in the Championship with 1 year left in his deal, completely understood it. And I feel so sorry for him, because when he signed for Southampton, he was injured till November, came back for a couple of substitute appearances, and now he's out for the season. I feel so sorry for him. Obviously, from a Sunderland point of view, you think, well, £10 million looks even better now. Very sad for him, but yeah, he was brilliant. He's a Premier League striker as well, but injuries will stop that ever happening now.
Yeah. I love this from Was I Eat Here? Question for Tom: a playoff place or a Wembley Cup final?
Oh, easily Wembley Cup final, yeah. But that's, see, this thing. I remember we got to the League Cup final in 2014, and it looked like we were going to get relegated. And this is the thing. I'm in the minority here, and I think you might also disagree with me here as well. Everyone's like, "Oh, go on. Well, you can win the cup final against Manchester City, and win the what at the time was called Capital One Cup. You can win that, and you get relegated, or you can survive and not win the final. I said, win the cup. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. If we get relegated, we might come back up, So Wembley Cup final, you see, it doesn't say whether you win or not, but Wembley Cup final, I would choose over a playoff place. Definitely, because we were in the playoffs last year. We lost in the semis. I'm comfortable with it. Wembley Cup final, 100%. 100%.
We've got an interesting one here from Life Goals. He said, I think I played against Tom once. Against Sutton Coldfield versus a Northern League side. We won 4-0 and I skinned a fullback and I believe it was Tom.
No, I've never played to that. That is a very high standard. I have never gone. I mean, that's semi-pro. I've never gone above the bench at amateur level, so it wasn't me. There is a Tom White who he played for Gateshead and Blackburn. I think he's now at Barrow, but he's actually a central midfielder. But no, that's not me. I mean, if he played against me, I can assure you he would have skinned me. But I never played at that level.
We are in transfer deadline season, Tom, as you know. And what Danielle wants to know is who would be your dream deadline day signing, or who have you been linked with, and who do you think you might get?
Thing is, with our it's difficult at Sunderland because our transfer policy now is every player we sign, I have to Google them, because they're youngsters from abroad who I've never heard of, and I've got to do my research on them. So it's actually quite hard. In terms of a dream signing, it's not exactly lofty heights, but we need a striker. And I've wanted this guy since we were in League One, and this guy played up front for St Mirren. He's a striker who's now at Hearts called Lawrence Shankland. I think he would fit the bill for us. It just shows the difference between Newcastle and Sunderland right now is that you're probably thinking, hey, Mbappe's out of contract at the end of the season. And I'm thinking, Lawrence Shankland from Hearts. That's kind of, we need a striker, and he's the one. He's not a dream signing, but he's the one that comes to mind right now. But our transfer policy is so different. We go for people that we've never heard of, with the exception of Joe Bellingham. The other signings we made this summer, I hadn't heard of.
I bet Keith Downey wouldn't be happy with that, would he? If you took his striker.
Exactly. That's the thing. That Sunderland fans aren't keen on Keith, which is quite harsh. They all claim he's a Newcastle fan. He is a Hearts fan. Let me make that very, very clear. He just has to cover Newcastle more than Sunderland because you're in the Premier League and we're not. Yes, I'm sure he's a big fan of Lawrence Shankland, but I suppose he'd have a good contact at the club if he comes to us.
It's true.
Definitely. We don't forget those days, Chris, Keith, when we were desperate and begging for Hamza Chowdhury on loan from Leicester City, but we couldn't afford the £100,000
loan
fee.
And I think as well, to be fair to Keith Downey, there were times where things got that desperate for Newcastle and transfer windows. I think one time Keith even said himself that it was so quiet up here and in Sunderland that he ended up going down to Middlesbrough or to Elland Road for some breaking news about a Middlesbrough signing, so...
Yeah,
he said it on our channel when he came on. Yeah, he told us about it.
Yeah, not the case anymore. You've got more exciting signings at Newcastle these days, certainly.
Hope there's more to come, Tom. We need more.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And then, Tom, I'm going to ask you this last one because we can't let you go without asking you this question. So Danielle asks, what's your best Derby Day moment and your worst Derby Day moment?
Brilliant question, Danielle.
Worst is easy. So I very rarely miss a derby. I've missed some, but I very rarely miss them. And the worst was that 5-1 because, like I said, I was there in the Newcastle end. And actually, at the time, the clubs were quite even. That season, we finished 10th and you finished 11th because, well, you might finish 12th, but like in the last minute, we got a third goal away at West Ham, which put us ahead of you on goal difference or something like that. So we finished 10th under Steve Bruce. That's how similar the teams were that season. And you beat us 5-1. And we were actually, that season, we were quite good. It was just completely, it was hell for me in the Newcastle end. I've often watched the game in the Newcastle end because it's very difficult for me to get tickets in the Sunderland end when there's often only 1,000 available. Not that you've got that problem this time when we've given you 6,000. So the worst one, that was easy. And 5-0 down, I had to leave to get my train. So I even missed Darren Bent's goal. I even missed our goal to make it even worse. And I'd come all the way up. At the time I was living in, actually, no, in fairness, at the time I was only living in Leeds. It's not that far, but that was horrible. Best was actually the Di Canio 3-0. I've had some good ones. I was at the 2-1 when Gary Speed, as I was walking up the steps because I was late, Gary Speed was heading the ball in, and I was in the Newcastle end again. And we turned around, Don Hutchison, and then Niall Quinn scored. That was a brilliant one. But the best one was the Di Canio 3-0 because I just didn't see it coming. I thought it was, I thought we had no chance. Mate of mine had been away for a long time. He came back. He said he was desperate for a weekend in Newcastle. I said, well, I know the perfect time to go. We went there, went to the game again, Newcastle end, won 3-0. Could not believe it. I still, to this day, I still can't believe that game. With VAR, remember that Papi Cissé's goal was onside. David Vaughan's goal was offside. It would have been so much different these days, but I just didn't see it. That's my best, but the worst was the 5-1, which is not a difficult one to say.
No.
That one hurt. The Canio one hurt. The celebration.
The celebration. Yeah.
In the technical area, honestly, I gave up football for that week. Like after I had to. That one really, really hurt. That one did.
I think a lot of neutrals, though, quite enjoyed Alan Pardew celebrating Cissé's goal, like towards the Sunderland bench, and then realising the flag was up. I think a few neutrals quite liked that, and I think there's not many Alan Pardew fans out there, including Newcastle fans these days. And that's always a good meme, isn't it? The Alan Pardew one. So at least you've got that out of it.
I think most people would forget that one, just because of the result and everything on it. But no, you're absolutely right.
I was just gonna pop up. You've just highlighted this, and I've just seen the sequence of events, Pete. So Clarky697 says, "Wait, isn't this the guy who planted the Mackham shirt in Graves' locker?"
Didn't need to. It was, I just accidentally stumbled upon it in his locker. That's what happened.
And then he goes on to say, "I never knew he was a Mackham. I thought it was just banter."
No, just an honest mistake. I was looking for a clean top, and I just stumbled upon it in his locker. That's what happened.
He's glad you for that when he gets back.
No, he doesn't need to do anything. Like I say, you'll beat us on Saturday, and he doesn't need to say a word. He wins. Let's be honest.
Well, no, that's a fair point. But thank you so much for all the questions in the chat. Brilliant as always. Brilliant community on Loaded Mag at NUFC. And this is it. We get down to the predictions, and I'm going to get it out there first. I've said it before earlier on in the show, and I'll say it again. We have to win this game, and I believe we will. We will. I'm going to go Newcastle to win 2-0. I think Newcastle will get the job done. I think the Geordies and the experience and everything that rides on that will see us through. So I think a 2-0 win for Newcastle will be just the medicine we need to take us through for the rest of this month. But Chris, I'm going to come to you before we come to Tom. What are you going for, fella?
I completely agree, Pete. I think in me when you first brought it up, then I was thinking, I think 2-0. I think we need this win to build a bit of momentum, build a bit of confidence, and I am confident that we can go to Stadium of Light and pick up the win. So I'm going to agree with you, Pete, and say 2-0.
Great stuff. There's some crazy scores in there. Andrew DB, Paul Spraggs on 4-0. BB, come on. I don't think it's going to be that high, but look, if it is, I take it. But Tom, the opposition fan, what are you going for as a Sunderland fan in your prediction?
All I'm going to say is comfortable win for Newcastle. I'm not going to say by how many, because I think my fellow Sunderland fans will not like me for it. So I'm going to say comfortable win for Newcastle. However, I will make another prediction. I do believe that there will be a red card. Ooh. And I also believe that, and I'll tell you what, I'll say a very specific prediction, right? I believe that Bruno Guimaraes will make a bad challenge early on, and I believe that he will get away with it. There's no VAR. And I believe that will be the most talked about moment at the end of the game.
Wow,
that's a very specific one. But I knew that you were going to be disappointed when I didn't give an actual score line. So I thought, well, let me say something that will at least appease you.
I thought you were going to say, just let me say something just to distract us. That's what I thought you were going to, because we're all like, wow.
Well, it has.
That's great.
Yeah.
We love it because we people on the channel, the community, they always look back to this and what we've predicted to see if it actually comes true. So it's great that you've given that.
I've given you three. I've given you three: Newcastle comfortable win, a red card, and Bruno Guimaraes to get away without a red card.
If you get that right, we're coming back to you for the lottery numbers. For Tuesday's Euro Millions. We're coming back to you for that if that comes true.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
As always, last but not least, the main man, Double O Stato, Keith Roll. People are eagerly anticipating your predictions. Reason being, Tom, and you won't be aware of this, is that Keith likes to sit on the fence with Newcastle predictions. And a lot of Newcastle fans in the chat are hoping that he does it this time.
He can't. He can't. There's a replay. You can't. It's a cup match. You can't.
Yeah, there you go. So, Keith, take it away. What's your prediction?
Well, if this fixture had happened last month when this draw came out, I had totally different feelings and totally different score on prediction on this one. But this last month has just shredded my confidence, really. The Forest game was abominable on Boxing Day. It was just a nightmare for me. And I'm really worried about this fixture now. And I've already highlighted in the stats earlier about Sunderland at home at the Stadium of Light, where it'll be bouncing with, and their energy in the second half. They are playing well in the second half. I can see 2 scores with this. I think there will be cards. There could be red cards as well. And I don't think, because Newcastle have been conceding goals for fun, the balance doesn't seem to be right. They seem to be conceding a lot of shots and a lot of chances. I think that they're not going to be able to keep the goals out at Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. I've got a feeling that it could be this, and it could go replay with a score as well, because naturally, the other month I was thinking win, but I think it could even be this as well. I even think it could be this scoreline.
Oh, Desmond.
I can't
St. James's. And what I would say is I'd be more confident if this was at St. James's and Sunderland got knocked out at the St. James's. Obviously, I hope Newcastle will win, but I'm realistic. They're conceding too many goals and they're awful away from home.
Keith, even our opposition guest Tom has gone for the Newcastle win. Come on, man. Oh.
Yeah. Sports small. There's a lot of other predictions which have got Sunderland win.
Thomas even said he couldn't even cope with the replay.
I couldn't. Honestly, I know it's not as nerve-wracking as when we were in the same league as each other, but I don't want another one. Let's just make this a one-off. Let's make sure someone wins this one, put it to bed, move on.
David R's in agreement with Keith.
Newcastle to make me believe, but in the last month they've made me stop believing. This run of 9 games has been awful.
The chat's not happy. That's all I'm going to say. They're not happy, but I expected it to be fair. But,
all I say is Newcastle proved me wrong. I want you to prove us wrong.
You've just said you've stopped believing. There is a Newcastle song that specifically tells you to not stop believing.
Tom, we've been telling him all season. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. But look, they're your predictions. They're out there, people. This is the predictions for the massive game on Saturday. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure, Tom. I know we've gone a little bit over the hour, but it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and join us for Away Days match preview. Just before you go, where can we find you?
What do you mean in terms of socials or in terms
of the lot?
Yeah, so at Tom White Media, no space or anything on X and Instagram and Sky Sports News. I am normally Good Morning Sports Fan, 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. Monday to Wednesday, and Soccer Sunday, midday till 4:30. But it's January transfer window, so my hours are a bit different, so don't worry about that.
As it is there, Chris on the button as well, putting the details in. Go and give Tom a follow. Brilliant guy and a fantastic guest. That is for sure. Thank you to everyone in the chat for your questions and obviously being an amazing community with your conversations tonight. As well as that, we've got a few more new guests in the chat as well. Someone local to us in Leicester, Josh, is watching. Shout out to Josh. Hope you're enjoying the show. I think might be a first time listening as well. So hope you are well. Just really quick shout out to some of the fantastic shows that we've had this week. Brilliant week for Loaded Mag NUFC. The main man, Kieran Maguire, give us all things financials on Newcastle United on Monday, New Year's Day. If you haven't checked out that show, please do. He really outlines Newcastle's position for January really well. It was a fantastic show all round. And of course, Graham Bailey from the HITC gave us all the lowdown. He gave us a bit of a slap of reality of where we might be in this month and with certain players. So go and check that one out. And of course, on Saturday, hopefully, fingers crossed, unless you're Keith, we're going to be celebrating a win on the reaction show Saturday evening. So come and join us for that. Times and details will be announced on Saturday morning. Big up to everyone in the chat. Massive thanks to everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. Tom as well. Look, if we do get a replay, it'd be great to have you back on to preview that game at some point, if available. I know your time is very precious, but just again, a massive thanks to you joining us. That's it, guys. We're out. Massive thanks. Hit the likes and subscribes on the way out. Come and help the Loaded community grow and become bigger. And until then, we do love playing away. Chris, take us home.
Tom, how'd you like that?
Take care, guys.
How you like?